Hello, team, and welcome. The day is saved. My daughter Lise has been watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was a little bit surprised, but better than Peppa Pig, so we're going with that. And the theme of today's class is Marvel movies and superheroes in general. But the grammatical theme is the passive voice, another tool in our arsenal. And I've kind of summarized what we will be seeing in this first paragraph right here. Let me read it to you. The hero evades a car being thrown like a dodgeball. A building has just been damaged by the villain, and a child must be saved by the sidekick. The last one-liners get said as the final battle gets started. So here we have all the content kind of summarized. You can use this as a reference. The first example, the hero evades a car being thrown like a dodgeball. My question for you is, who threw this car? And while we can deduce it is a bad guy, we do not know this from the sentence. And look at the second part. A building has just been damaged by the villain, and a child must be saved by the sidekick. In this example, you do know who did the damaging and the saving. The villain, and then later the sidekick. In this case, we can add by to specify who did the action. I will also mention later why I do not recommend this. And last up, the new content this season for my veteran students. The same way that we can switch to be for get in many circumstances, we can do this with the passive voice as well. The way that I said the last one-liners get said, one-liners are those little funny, quick sayings or comments, usually by the hero before they beat up the villain. But the last one-liners get said can just as easily be the last one-liners are said. The final battle gets started can be switched for the final battle is started. And I would say with get, we have a little bit more of that transition aspect. The final battle gets started. It was not started, and then it was. But if you say the final battle is started, we go right to the start. But it is very small, the difference. So think of get just as another function. All right. So you have the rest of your story here, but let's get to it. The magic necklace. And I started this little story out. There's a silver necklace with an emerald in it. The necklace, I forgot to mention, but try to use the passive voice. See where you're starting from before we get into the explanation. All right. So number one, what is the passive voice? It is when the subject of the sentence is the one being affected by the action. The ball is thrown. The ball, the subject, is thrown, is the one receiving the action. The active voice would be I throw the ball. I, the subject, and the object is the one receiving the action. Now, how do we make this passive voice? We will use to be in the appropriate tense. Remember, this is a voice. It can be applied to the past, the present, the future, and you will use the correct form of to be. So if it's the present, it's going to be is, it's going to be are. If it's the past, it's going to be was, were. If it's the present perfect, has been. But together with the past participle. For ed verbs, it's just ed, has been watched. For irregular verbs, has been done. It's that third column. If you have studied in those traditional English schools that have the present, past, and the past participle, it's the third column. Ed verbs, just ed. And here are some examples. Diego plays soccer. That is the active voice. Soccer is played. We do not know who did the playing. Thor and Loki were fighting Thanos. Thanos was being fought. In this case, it is worth noting that were became was because in the first example, Thor and Loki, plural. The second example, Thanos, singular, was being fought. Now, I mentioned earlier by, and if you use it once, it's fine. But if you are repeatedly using by, just use the active voice. You're going through extra steps. Instead of soccer is played by Diego, let's just put Diego plays soccer. So if you are using by too much, I would recommend switching it back into the active voice. Now, I think this might be the most important part. When do or when should we use the passive voice? And I guess it depends on if you want to use it, but let me present a few options. And the first one is with processes. So I'm going to read the example. Texas Hold'em is played with one full deck of cards. 2 cards are dealt to each player, and 5 cards are placed face down on the table. Why do you use the passive voice? Because it doesn't matter if it's me playing, if it's you playing, if it's João, if it's Maria. This is just the way it is played. So for processes, when the person performing the action is not as important as the action, we can use the passive voice. It is also common in reports, both legal documents or just general business documents, when the action is what's more important than who did the action. So when I say 10 air conditioners were ordered, unfortunately, when the package was opened, we saw that 3 had been broken. And at no point did I say, you guys sent this, it's your fault, and then Maria broke it. So we are just saying these are the facts. We are not pointing fingers at anybody specific. We can use them for fluidity, just to kind of change the flow of the sentence. Saint Seiya is a very popular anime in Brazil. It is called Cavaleiros do Zodíaco. Yes, if you are not Brazilian, do not insult Saint Seiya here. They really like it. It's almost like soccer. But next up in the news. This one I'm not a fan of. But news, different news stations. I'm not going to pick on any one specifically, but I would like to. They use the passive voice to kind of remove themselves from saying this person did this. So the subject is thought to be about 6 feet tall and very dangerous. He is believed to be armed. It's a way of not saying, oh, we didn't say it. We're saying it's believed. It is thought. So it's a one way of kind of escaping punishment for what they say. For indirect speech, I think this one can be useful for anybody who works with customer service or client success. Sometimes you need to be careful with how you communicate. And instead of saying, you said this, you could say, it was agreed. And it sounds almost like you're observing from outside instead of pointing a finger. So I think this would be a good use of the passive voice. And last up, the new information is get. Where we can put be, we can put get in this situation. So the Infinity Stone was taken by Loki, or the Infinity Stone got taken by Loki. Both would be fine. Magical Forest Adventure. I have been using some chat GPT to create some stories. Stay tuned next year. It will be more prevalent. But this is a little story. My daughter, Lise, she does not like it when I use her in the stories, so I'm using Lily. But y'all know who I'm talking about. And here I switched. There's some places where we have the active voice, a brave young girl named Lily, and a brave young girl named Liv discovered a hidden treasure. Yes, sorry, the active voice, and I would like you to switch it into the passive voice. And let me see if we have any in the passive voice. A noise was heard. We have the passive voice here. I would like you to put it into the active voice. Each part that is highlighted in blue. Okay. Conversation starters. Let me pick a good one. I was like 9. 9 are the more difficult questions. But do you like superhero movies? I used to like them more. I think they are following a certain formula, and that I do not like. But I do believe that almost everybody who right now in 2023 is from about 15 to 30 years old has seen most of these Marvel movies. And one thing that I have never liked about Marvel or DC superheroes is that they are privileged without deserving it. And what do I mean by this? They're either born billionaires or they just receive powers. At no point do I see them working to earn these powers. Captain America, he was a cool guy, but then he's like, oh, here, take some super steroids. Batman, he's very cool, but he was also born a billionaire. They did not know how. They are not aware who Batman is just from looking at Wayne Tower. So I do not like that lesson, that things are special abilities and situations are just given. And in that sense, I do like Japanese superheroes who, put in the work to receive their powers. Goku trained a lot. So I worry that this might become a hero archetype in the future. I just deserve powers and abilities. But on the other hand, they are entertaining, and my 3-year-old daughter has enjoyed the Marvel movies. As she said the other day, wake me up when they all get together and start fighting. And I thought that was a fair assessment of the movie. Let me see. And last up, the magic necklace continued. Now that you have a deeper understanding of the passive voice, I would like you to continue this story further using the passive voice at least 5 times. Team, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in class.